Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first session within our final day within our virtual bullying prevention conference. My name is Bianca Gonzalez, and I'm the Bullying Prevention Program Coordinator with the Riverside Medical Clinic Charitable Foundation. So I actually wanted to share a little bit about today because it's World Kindness Week, but today is actually World Kindness Day on Friday the 13th. So it's super ironic, but a little bit that I do want to share about World Kindness Day is that it's actually an international holiday that was formed in 1998 to promote kindness throughout the world, and it's observed annually on this date as part of the World Kindness Movement. It's observed in many countries, including the US, Canada, Japan, Australia, and so on. So this day is devoted to the positive effects of both large and small acts of kindness. And we just urge you to try and promote this much needed quality that ultimately exemplifies the theme of our conference, which is uniting our community against bullying through kindness, empathy, and inclusion. So I just wanted to throw that little piece of information in there. But before we go ahead and begin today's session, I want to just go ahead and go over some helpful Zoom tips and some new features that we're offering in this webinar. So we are offering closed captioning services. So if you look towards the bottom of your screen, you should see a CC icon with an arrow pointing up. If you click on that, it'll allow you to show subtitles, and you just follow the same steps to turn it off. So it's completely up to you if you want to use that service. We are recording this webinar and uploading it on our YouTube channel. Please feel free to subscribe. It's Riverside Medical Clinic Charitable Foundation. And we are also offering a kindness kit giveaway, as you can see here. So our grand prize is kindness kits for a classroom. And then we have other prizes, which consist of Amazon gift cards. If you're not an educator, and let's say you do win our grand prize, you can actually donate a kit to your classroom of choice, and just keep in mind that this giveaway is only available to Riverside County attendees. We also have the chat box feature. I can already tell that everybody's aware and they know how to use that. We're going to have a Q&A session towards the end of the webinar. So any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them for the end. And then after each of our sessions, we're going to be providing an opportunity to complete a short survey. So we look forward to receiving your valuable feedback, and just note that by completing that, it's actually an additional entry within our giveaway that we're offering. We're also very appreciative of the help of our wonderful sponsors, and I want to go ahead and just personally shout them out. So we want to thank the Riverside Medical Clinic, Kaiser Permanente, the Press Enterprise, City of Riverside, Riverside County Board of Supervisors, Hub International, IHP, Alliant, Singer Luwak, Union Bank, and LabCorp. We truly appreciate your support. So I now just want to share a little bit about our foundation. And as you can see here, this is the impact that we've had in 2019, but I also want to share what we've been doing during this time and a little bit about our history. So we were actually founded 36 years ago in 1984 by 19 RMC physicians who formed our foundation with the goal of improving the health and quality of life in inland Southern California through advocacy, individual and professional education, and service. We offer monthly support groups for endometriosis, prostate cancer, Alzheimer's, and brain injury and stroke. And during this time, they're meeting online. They're receiving wellness check calls. We're sending monthly newsletters with vital support information. And we have also been providing our scholarship program, which has awarded over $25,000 in 3 different areas related to health education and special need programs. In 2012, we had a lecture on bullying that inspired us to launch the Anti-Bullying Institute, also known as ABI. And within this program, we offer services and resources to parents, administrators, and youth in Spanish and English to assist in ending the cycle of bullying. ABI has impacted over 14,000 students and parents through student and parent-centered bullying prevention education. And we also currently serve over 20,000 HERO alumni through our ongoing programs. And we also have our Traveling Triplets program. It's a doll therapy program which brings meaning and purpose for someone who is living with dementia. Currently it is on hold, but we hope to begin this programming as soon as it is safe for our seniors. And lastly, we have reached thousands through our health education and events in honor of some of our founding doctors. So if you would like any more information, please feel free to visit our website where we have additional information regarding what I just went over. So now I want to go ahead and introduce our presenter for today. He actually was a previous speaker this week, and today he's actually presenting again, and this will be more of a presentation geared towards students and youth. So a little bit about Don Powell he's an administrator for the Instructional Services at Riverside County Office of Education, where he provides professional development to educators. Prior to that, Don served as an assistant principal to Upland High School and was a classroom teacher for the Victor Valley Union High School District for over 10 years. When Don's not working, he can be found playing all manner of board and video games with his 2 boys and girlfriend. So now I want to go ahead and give it away to Don.
Hey everybody, my name's Don. I'm really excited to be here today. I just want to make sure that I'm entered to get on gift card because man, I could certainly use that as the holiday season's coming up. Let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll get this party started. Hopefully you guys are enjoying your World Kindness Day and yeah. Oh, and now you're seeing nothing on my screen. Happy Friday, my son wants you to tell me, or he wants me to tell you guys because he's in the background. There we go. I'm gonna ask real quick that everyone can see my screen. Of course, now I can't tell. All right, so right now, if I could get you guys to do me a favor, you can see, hopefully you can see my screen. If not, somebody's gonna let me know. But I promise this is all gonna kind of loop back to each other. But if you can remember from PE, state finals and track, or your 4th grade race where you beat your arch nemesis, what's your fastest time to run a mile? Go ahead and just drop those times in the chat. And if you're not an athlete, it's okay. How long did it take you to get ready this morning? Or if you rolled out of bed because you got that luxury because now you're on a panel or you're in a webinar and no one's gonna see your bed head and the drool dripping down off of the corner of your mouth, that's fine too. So let's go back to when you had to get ready in the morning so that people could see you. How long would it take you and how many different things would you do in that amount of time? Go ahead and drop that in chat. Dang, Janet, you ran a 7-minute mile, good job. So I'm monitoring the chat as you can see right now. Go ahead and drop those answers in the chat. I'm gonna tell you a story about my fastest mile time. Oh, she runs 5Ks and 10Ks all the time, all right. So,
Don, can I interrupt you really quick?
Yeah.
I think just with the chat box, it covers a little bit of your presentation.
Oh, I didn't realize.
If you need help, I can help you.
All right.
With the chat.
So I will minimize my chat. So now it should be free for everyone to see. Is that right?
Yes. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I didn't realize that me having the chat box up was going to take things away. So as those chats come in, if somebody could just announce whatever that is, that'd be fantastic right now. So during my mile, I ran track in high school and I was one of those guys who was like, I just want to be on the team, so I'll do whatever's needed. First track meet, coach was like, we need someone to run the mile. All you got to do is go out there and run. And I was like, all right. So I go out and I run the mile and in PE in middle school, I used to run like an 8-minute mile. And I was pretty proud of that time. Like 8 minutes is pretty good, right? And I've been conditioning and things like that. So I anticipated doing really well. I ran the fastest mile I have ever run in my entire life. And I mean, it was lightning fast. I shaved minutes off of my mile. I ran a mile in 5 minutes and 47 seconds. Now, granted, this was like 20 years ago, but I was incredibly proud I would have been incredibly proud of that mile, except that I finished second to last in that race. So there was everybody else. And then there was this extremely long pause. And then it was longer. And then it was me. And then I finished at 5:47. It was like humiliating. Like everyone had gone off the track and field. They were like, when is this kid gonna get off the track? And then about 100 yards behind me was this kid who came in last. And I feel bad for that guy. But I mean, I just knew like they were just like literally just kind of standing around and waiting. And track and field, a couple of seconds is like 100 miles. I mean, there was like a minute and a half between me and the other guys. So that was my fastest mile time. Anybody else with fast mile times or anything like that?
Yes,
All
I
right,
did see one. I saw one from, and I'm so sorry if I say your name incorrectly. I believe it's Briselli Martinez. And they 5 minutes and 45 seconds, the fastest mile time in high school track.
Whoa, awesome, Brisley. That's amazing. Dang. And then Nicole Rodriguez got a 15-minute mile. There you go. Anything wrong with that? I mean, shoot. 4th grade ran a 10-minute mile. There you go. Get it? Awesome. Way back when my fastest mile was 10 minutes. All right. I was way past fourth grade though. Oh, my bad. I misread that, Barry. All right. So I'm going to come back to that in a second. But right now, I want you to drop one more thing in the chat. What's an impossible dream you have? A dream that says you can't do it. No one, that's not going to happen. You know, a dream that when people tell that to somebody, they laugh, or maybe you haven't shared it with anybody. I promise you, I'm not going to laugh at your dream. And hopefully nobody else does. It's World Kindness Day for crying out loud. So we're going to be really open about that. What's a dream that you have that's impossible, that you think, or that somebody else has told you, or that you know that people believe that it's impossible, that it can't be done? Okay. Go ahead and drop that in the chat. Kiana wants to become a billionaire. Nice. Nancy wants to travel the world as a doctor. They have a program for that called Doctors Without Borders. It's really cool. Becoming a coffee expert. Okay. I'm not entirely sure what that entails, but that sounds pretty cool. You'll be able to like judge camera by the beans. When I win the lottery. Nice. National Geographic photographer. I don't even own a camera. Wow. Okay. So we've got some work we got to make up in terms of ground on that, but it's possible. Simultaneous to being a lawyer and a tattoo artist. I don't see why you can't do that, but I think that's amazing. If you can do the art, I think you're going to be set. Because both of those are individual businesses where you can set your own practice, but that's okay. I think I like that. Anybody else? To be able to collect all kinds of musical instruments and play them well. Yeah. I had that dream, but I can't make a note to save my life. I can't even whistle. I can whistle when I inhale, but that's about it. I'm giving you guys way too much personal information about me right now. So open my own Native American boarding school. Wow, okay. Travel the world and also try all diners, drive-ins, and dives locations. Man, that show is still on the air and is crazy. I've been to a few of those places and they're all amazing, but all of them, that's intense. To live in a beach house. Yeah, I would love to do that. All right. I want to talk to you guys about, I'm going to come back to the field of track and field for a minute. If you got those impossible dreams, keep dropping those in the chat. I'd really like to see them because they're really going to tie into what we're going to talk about today. In the 1940s, some kid, and I don't even remember his name, ran a mile in about 4 minutes. And then all of a sudden it became this thing where they thought that you could run a mile in under 4 minutes. And for 9 years, people tried. And in fact, it had gotten to the point where people were like, never mind, it can't be done. Humans cannot run a sub 4 minute mile. It won't happen. In fact, if it would happen, that person would die. That was literally the prevailing belief until 1954 when Roger Bannister ran a mile in 3 minutes and 59 seconds. And I think it was like 50, what is the milliseconds or whatever. So Roger Bannister shattered the world track and field records. The crazy thing is he did that in 1954, and now we have high school students running a sub 4 minute mile. It's almost a common occurrence. Now, what isn't a common occurrence and what's something that hadn't happened in my lifetime and I expect to happen on the world stage because I believe in the human endeavor is that someone would run a marathon in 2 hours. In under 2 hours. And in 2017, Nike sponsored the sub 2 race where they got 3 of the fastest marathon runners in the world. And they trained for 2 years. They equipped them with special shoes, gave them all kinds of equipment. They worked, they did all of this amazing stuff and strategized and everything. And they ran this sub 2 race. And Eliud Kipchoge, who is my new hero, attempted the impossible. At that point in time, he had run faster than any human being on the planet. But he failed. He was 23 seconds away from breaking a sub 2 hour marathon. Now, all those mile times that I told you guys, in order for Eliud Kipchoge to run 26.2 miles in under 2 hours, he was going to have to run each mile, at 4 minutes and 34 seconds. I can't even fathom running a 5-minute mile now at 38, let alone when I was 17 and I ran one at 5:47 and I was the second slowest kid on the track. And not only was I going to have to run one, but 26 and some change. So Eliud Kipchoge attempted the impossible and he failed in 2017. I'm going to give you some statistics now, and I promise you it's all going to tie in and it's all going to relate. So if it seems like it's coming out of left field, don't worry, it is, but it will make sense. When people talked about Eliud Kipchoge's sub 2-hour marathon, they said it would be like landing on the moon. In 1961, JFK gave this speech in Florida and said, by the end of the decade, we will land a man on the moon and return him safely to Earth. We'd barely been to outer space. The Russians were kicking our butt in the space race all over the place. We hadn't even orbited around the moon. And it was like we were going to land a man on the moon and then get him back to Earth. It seemed impossible. But Kennedy was inspirational. And we all know July 16th, 1969. I'm going to be a really bad history teacher for not remembering that date. Please don't judge me. But I'm going to be a really good history teacher and tell you that you don't need to remember dates because Google is out there and it will help you. All right, I'm going to get back on track now. 70% of foster kids would like to go to college. Now, the lifetime college graduation rate. So if you're in high school right now and you graduate college or graduate high school and you go to college, the 6-year graduation rate. So that means if you start school 6 years later, the 6-year college graduation rate hovers right around between 55 and 65%, depending upon whether you're going to a private school or a public school. So, if you start, chances are you're going to finish. The lifetime, so in their lifetime, the lifetime graduation rate for a foster youth is less than 3%. So despite the fact that 70% want to go to a 4-year college, less than 3 will graduate. 60% of boys who age out of the foster care system are legally emancipated have been convicted of a crime. 7 in 10 girls who age out will become pregnant before the age of 21. 1 in 2 will develop a substance abuse addiction. 1 in 4 won't graduate from high school or get a GED. Now remember, go back 2 slides, 70% said they want to go to college. So of the 70%, there is a 5% in that range that say they want to go to college, but will not graduate from high school or get a GED. 70% of inmates in California State Prison are former foster care youth. This means that basically, if you're in prison, there's a pretty good chance that you were in foster care. I tell you all this story because I'm going to tell you some personal stuff about me. When I had a relatively normal childhood growing up until about 4th grade. In 4th grade, my parents got a divorce and I moved in with my mom. My mom was in the military and she didn't really spend a whole lot of my formative years raising me. That was a lot of time with my dad. My dad was like my best friend. He was out of work for a lot of time, so he was taking care of me. My mom was in the military and she lived about an hour away. And so she would only come home on weekends. And even then, 1 weekend a month, she had to work because she was something called AGR. So most of my time that I remember growing up from like kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade, I spent that time with my dad. And my dad was like my best friend. So moving in with my mom was a huge culture shift for me. And my mom, she didn't know how to raise a boy. And I was pretty angry and I was upset. And so my mom became really irate and angry and abusive. My mom was physically abusive and she was emotionally abusive. My mom thought I had gotten out of control and it showed up. It started to affect me at school. I remember in 5th grade, things went relatively normal, except that I must have mentioned it to somebody or somebody had noticed something was wrong and it got reported that I was abused. And so social services comes out to your home and they do what's called a wellness check and they interview people and they check on things. And lo and behold, all that did was make my mom and her girlfriend at the time, Desiree, more smart about the abuse and how they would handle it. And so I learned real quick not to say anything anymore. But then things started to manifest themselves in 6th grade and I started getting into fights at school. I started getting into trouble. And I'll never forget, Mr. Gottschall, my 6th grade reading teacher, yanks me out of in-school suspension. Back in the day, in-school suspension was like a room where you weren't allowed to talk and you weren't allowed to do anything. And you just sat there for 6.5 hours bored. Some of you are thinking that's exactly how I sit through school right now. But at least you get to go up and go to different classes. Hopefully your teachers are better than that. And I hope they aspire to be better than that. And I hope that if they're not, you are inspiring them to make a change. But he came out in his period off. So he's off. He could be doing whatever he wanted. But he came down to the slammer is what we called it. And he yanked me out and he got in my face and he said, "What are you doing, pal? You're better than that. You can't be getting into fights. You got to be doing." And I'll never forget that this guy took the time out of his day to actually care about me, because it certainly didn't seem like my mom and Desiree did. In fact, things had gotten so bad that they had sent me to a military school. So I was in this military school during 7th grade, and during that time, I was really thriving. You know, I'm in a military academy where it's supposed to be super regimented and disciplined and blah, 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 blah. And I thought it was a cakewalk. I loved it. But it got worse when one of the cadets started to molest me. And even when that was going on, it started a couple of months after I got there and went all the way through until December, until my roommate had witnessed it happening. And he went and he told the adult that was on our floor in the evening, and word spread like wildfire. And so the next day, everyone was snickering and laughing and making fun of me and teasing me and calling me gay and homosexual. And I didn't know how to take any of it. And I remember a person who I had considered a dear friend of mine come down and got in my face and started teasing me. And I remember slapping him. I slapped him and then I jumped on the bed and I started to cry. And I immediately thought, maybe I am gay, because if I was straight, I would have punched him. And not that there was anything wrong with being gay, but I didn't think I was gay. And I certainly didn't think that this act made me gay. And I was very, very, very confused. And so I wrestled with that for a long time. And I was teased by just about everyone at the school. When it got discovered, afterwards, my mom pulled me out of the school, and my mom sided with my accuser. She thought that I was a willful participant in these kinds of things. So my mom, being in the military, had moved to Wisconsin, and we were living in Wisconsin, and that's where I started my senior year of high school. In the middle of my senior year, actually over Thanksgiving break, we moved to a place called Moon Area Township. It's the last week of November, so that's Thanksgiving break, and we started school the first week of December. I'm 12 years old, and at the age of 13, so 2 weeks later, December 18th, I turned 13, and my mom had gone off more than I was used to at that point in time. It was enough for me. It was the last straw. I ran away from home. And so you see these pictures of these stairs down here on the screen, and they look kind of similar to that. Lived in the 3rd story of an apartment complex, and there was an apartment on the 3rd floor, an apartment on the 2nd floor, an apartment on the 1st floor, and it was a long, wide building like this, and there were like 3 rows. And underneath, in the basement areas, there was either storage areas or laundry facilities with like a little washer and dryer that you could use quarters and stuff to go ahead and do your laundry. I ran out the building, I ran into the next building, and I sat down on the stairs, and I realized that I'd lived in this town for 2 weeks. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have a single friend. I didn't know where to go. My dad lives 5 hours away. I couldn't go there. I had no money. I didn't even have a coat. And it was December in Pittsburgh, and it gets cold in December, freezing. And I remember just sitting there and realizing that I had nowhere to go and nowhere to turn to. And I had cried and I had cried, and I had never felt more alone than I had felt sitting on those stairs in my entire life. And I made a promise to myself that if I made it through that, I was going to work the rest of my life to make sure that I never let someone else feel that alone ever again. And that I would do everything I could to make sure that that didn't happen to somebody else. Unfortunately, I still work in a position, and I think that happens to us as children and to people all too often. But that was my pledge, and that is something that I have continued to work for. Since then, I ran away from home. Essentially what had happened is over the period of a few months, I was living on the streets, and I would sleep in that little laundry area next to the washer and dryer, next to the dryer specifically for warmth. People would go in and put their clothes in the dryer, and they'd let them dry overnight, come down and get them in the morning. And when the dryer was running, it would give off heat. And so that's where I slept. I would go home. I would have the police escort me home to my mother's house. And the cops would talk to my mom, and they would talk to Desiree, and I would go into my bedroom, and I would gather up all of the clothes that I could. I would put on like 10 different shirts or 3 different pairs of pants and put on a coat. And then I would jump out of this 3-story window and then roll so that I could, so I wouldn't get hurt. The snow on the ground helped to soften the fall, but that's how I survived for 3 months. I ate school lunch. I hung out after school and lived off the charity of others. I would hang out by a gas station and ask for change in the hopes that people would give me change to call my mom, except that I would use that change to go in and buy a hot dog. And I would steal chips and whatever I could so that I could eat. And that's how I survived for about 3 months. And then a caseworker came to my school and said, "Hey, we want you to go home. We promise your mom has agreed to not do anything to you, and that it will be safe if you can go home tonight. And then the next day things will get better." And so I went, and then I got, the next day, my mother took me to what I believed was supposed to be a psychiatric evaluation, but it was court. They dropped me off at family court in Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, and said, we don't want you to live at our house anymore. And I was like, that's fine, because I don't want to live there anymore. And so they put me into a boys' home. And so I was in this group home, the shelter for 3 weeks. And then I spent 11 months and 6 days at the Melblunt Youth Home of Pennsylvania in Claysville, Pennsylvania. Claysville is a weird area because it's like an hour outside of Pittsburgh, but it's still in like the 1960s over there. There's an active Klan. They were burning crosses across the street because Mel Blount was a very famous Pittsburgh Steeler in the 1970s. If you don't know much about him, and if you like football, you should look him up because they changed the rules of the game because of him. I'm not even kidding you. That's how good the guy was. I spent 11 months at that boys' home, and during that time, they had like a one-room schoolhouse where you would learn. And so that's where I was when I was in, finished out 9th grade year. And then because I was a good model or a good kid at that group home, they let me go to the local high school. So I got to start there. And then I moved in with an aunt and uncle who lived in Virginia, and they felt bad, so they took care of me. So then I moved to Virginia, and then my aunt and uncle at the end of my 10th grade year moved to California because my uncle was also in the military, and he got stationed out in Barstow. Barstow is a pretty desolate area. I mean, it's not more desolate than other areas, but so they moved to Victorville, which is a bigger population center. So I went to Victor Valley High School. Things with my aunt and uncle didn't really work out that well. I don't blame them. They might blame me. I don't really know, but I just had gotten tired of having to live under the thumb of people and tired of trying to do the right thing and then being punished because of it. So I remember running away from home there, and I was bouncing around on friends' couches for a little bit, and I had come to stay at a friend's house, and it was supposed to be for a night. And then it wound up being for several weeks. And my uncle was irate that I wasn't living at home, and he had withdrawn me from school, and it became this big ordeal. And eventually my uncle caught me, and he put me on a plane and sent me back to Pittsburgh, Allegheny County. And so that's where I was for another 3 weeks until the courts were able to work things out, and I was able to go back to Victor Valley High School and graduate my senior year. So my high school experience is this on this map right here. So all over the place, 8,510 miles traveled. I think that's pretty impressive by the way of if you were to drive it all. So starting all the way up here at Neenah, and then you can see all of the little stops in southeastern Pennsylvania to Virginia to California, back to Pennsylvania, and then back again to there. Despite all of that stuff happening to me, one of the things that I knew is that education was the silver bullet. I knew because my mom had gone through it and had taken so much from me, you know, and going through the system, they can take things from you. They can take things from you, you know, your clothes, your food, your shelter, all of that stuff people can take from you, but they can't take your knowledge. They can't take what you know. And they couldn't take that from me. So I persisted in my educational endeavors. And I knew when I graduated high school, I graduated number 11 in my class. I'm not bitter about it. Actually, I'm still really bitter about it because the top 10 got medals and I really wanted a medal. So I graduated number 11 in my class. But despite that, no one had told me that I needed to take the SAT. Nobody told me I needed to apply for college. Nobody told me how any of that process worked. And so I wound up going to a community college. I went there for 3 years. That's the local community college where I'm at. And it looks very nice, but I'm telling you right now, those ducks that you see in those pictures are evil. They will attack you and they're very, very, very mean. People have been chased around by those ducks for ages. It's kind of like a rite of passage at Victory Valley College. After graduating from VVC, I was all set to move to Colorado because I'm a huge Denver Broncos fan and that's what I've always wanted to do. But my best friend was at UC Santa Barbara. And so I go up there and I visit him. And I got to be honest with you, this is not the best way to choose a college, but there were a lot of pretty girls walking around in the middle of February. And my best friend's like, what are they wearing over in Colorado right now? And I was like, I don't know. And he was like, yeah, but I imagine it's probably parkas. And I was like, yeah, you're probably right. What I came to find out about UC Santa Barbara is that UC Santa Barbara is one of the only public schools on the planet that is top 10 in academics and top 10 in partying. What's cool about UC Santa Barbara is in the 1980s, there were this massive party school. They were constantly being rated as like the #1 party school in the nation, which is crazy. Like, I mean, they just had like wild parties or whatever. And in the early 1990s, a new chancellor came in and the new chancellor said, we are going to be a world-class institution for academics. And the kids revolted and said, we are going to be a world-class institution for partying. And so to this day, 30 years later, 40 years later, it is still a world-class institution for both academics and for partying. Top 10 party schools, number 6, number 7 in terms of top public universities in the entire United States of America. So that's pretty good. So I went to UC Santa Barbara. I graduated from UC Santa Barbara. I started teaching and I became a classroom teacher. And it's absolutely the coolest thing on the planet that I ever got to do. I loved it. I got to hang out with kids all day. I got to teach history. Teach history in a class called Avid and inspire other kids to go to college because that was me. I was an Avid student. If you're an Avid, stick with it. It can help you. And I got to do that and I loved it. But I really learned over the course of this time that I could do more. I wanted to help more people. And the 180 students that I saw in a year just wasn't going to be enough for me. So I became an assistant principal. I worked at Upland High School, which is 3,500 kids. And we instituted a college day and it was really cool. And we inspired every kid on campus, 9th through 12th. So that's 3,800 kids. We started down the path to go to college. And I was really proud of that. But I wanted to do more. And so now I work at the Riverside County Office of Education and I work with teachers. And my hope is to help them become better teachers so that they can inspire their students. And I recognize that now as a county office administrator, if I can influence 2 teachers in a year, I will have doubled my impact as a classroom teacher. And so I work with teachers in the hopes that we can help you achieve whatever your impossible dreams are. Because for me, I didn't know it at the time. I'd never seen those statistics that I had just shown to you, that I was going to become a drug addict, that I was going to become a convict, that I was not going to graduate from college. I never knew any of those things. All I know now is that I'm a college graduate, and then I've achieved those great things. And it wasn't easy, and it was because I had help along the way. I had people like Mr. Gottschall to help me out. I had the friend's mom that took me in my senior year. I forgot to tell a quick story. When I was a freshman and I was all alone, one day after school, I had met this girl named Krisha, and her mom wanted to name her Patricia and her dad wanted to name her Christina. So they combined the name and they called her Krisha. And Krisha was a really cool cat. She was amazing. She like took me under her wing. She was after school. And so she brought me over to her house, and her parents, you know, despite all of the negative things that were happening to me, they fed me, they got me all kinds of, you know, they didn't care that I ate a whole box of Twinkies one day at their school, at their place. You know, I had all these people that helped me along the way. And I never would have made it where I am today if I wasn't helped, if it wasn't because of the kindness of strangers. I think on World Kindness Day, it's important to kind of make that distinction and to talk about that. So I was able to achieve this impossible dream, the dream that flies in the face of statistics, and sit here today with you before Zoom, not in prison. And I'm really grateful for that. The crazy thing about impossible is that it doesn't just happen in statistics. And you know, I'm not just the only example of it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. In 2017, Eliud Kipchoge, tried the impossible and he failed. He failed. He was 23 seconds away from achieving his dream. And to give you an idea, 23 seconds is a lifetime in track and field. In the 1936 Olympic Games in Berlin, there's a track star named Jesse Owens, and he's famous for winning 4 gold medals and defeating Hitler's master race. And Jesse Owens is in Olympic history, and he's in your history books, and you're going to learn about him. You may not remember him, and that's okay. But there's going to be a guy that you don't learn about in your history books. And it's a guy who ran the 200 meters in those 1936 Olympic Games. And at the time, he ran it faster than anyone on the planet. Anyone. With the exception of Jesse Owens. Jesse Owens beat him by 4/10 of a second. Not 4 seconds, 4/10. So less than a half a second. The crazy thing is, that guy had a famous brother that you have all heard of. His name, the brother's name, was Jackie Robinson. Jackie Robinson's famous for breaking the color barrier in baseball with the LA Dodgers. Jackie Robinson's older brother, who you've never heard of, is a guy named Mac Robinson, and he retired from track and field and became a janitor at an all-white high school in Pasadena. That's the difference between 4/10 of a second. Now extrapolate that out. 4/10 of a second is 100 miles. Might as well be, right? So Eliud Kipchoge failed by 22 seconds in 2017. It's just not going to happen. Hang it up, retire, call it quits. I mean, you're 32. There's no way you're going to be able to run a marathon of 26.2 miles at 4 minutes and 34 seconds a mile. It's just not going to happen. I believe that it would happen in the course of human existence. I hoped that it would happen in my lifetime. Last year, Eliud Kipchoge did the impossible. 2 years later, 2 years older, undeterred by failure, he ran a marathon faster than any man had ever run a marathon in the history of mankind. And he said that no human is limited. You have impossible dreams. You shared those impossible dreams. If Eliud Kipchoge could do the impossible, if I could do the unlikely, you can own a tattoo parlor, be a lawyer. You can travel the world. You could be a photographer for National Geographic, although you're going to have to get a camera and start. You can see every place on diners, drive-ins, and dives. Although I would recommend you also get a workout schedule because you will put on some weight because those places are good and very tasty. But you can do all of these amazing things. I really believe that. And so that concludes my portion of the presentation. I want to open it up to Q&A. I'm going to open up my chat box now and see what everybody has been saying in the chat. Please feel free to ask any questions you like. I'm here, answer any questions about anything. Right now, it's an open book. All right.
Thank you, Don. I think we'll wait a couple minutes and see.
Absolutely.
If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to share any comments as well. You have the option to do it in the chat box. There's also a Q&A feature, and you can leave any questions or comments there as well. And by the way, that was me. I want to visit every Triple D location.
Telling you, you're gonna have to definitely get some kind of workout routine going, because I mean,
I know.
and it's so good.
It really is.
The places I've been have been fantastic. Kiana, I see that you shared your story. Thank you for sharing your story. It certainly sounds like you're on the right track right now. Junior in high school, ahead of your class, straight A's, awesome. Congratulations. Keep up the work. You know, one of the things that I have found as I've grown older is all of those things affect you, and they have these negative impacts on you. And they've affected my relationships. They've affected my ability to have relationships, you know. In my bio, I mentioned that I have 2 kids and that I play video games with my girlfriend. I had a marriage that didn't work out. And in part, it was my fault. And it was because I didn't know how to cope with the negative things that had happened to me. And I was so used to the people that were supposed to take care of me abandoning me or making poor choices. And I've learned to not project what has happened in my past onto what is happening to me in my present. And that's taken some time, and it's taken me going to therapy to get that help. I'm not saying you need that help right now, but if and when that starts to surface itself as you get a little bit older, don't be afraid. Just remember that you went through some stuff, man, and it's not easy. And if you need help applying to college, if you need help with any of that, please hit me up. I'm free and I'm available. I will gladly, that is like my jam. I just really appreciate the inspiring, hard to imagine the positive impact you've had on countless kids. Thank you. I hope, I'm trying. So.
We have a couple of questions in the Q&A, and
Okay.
I think this is a big one, and I feel like we all struggle with this.
Sure.
Yeah, I do. So Brenda would like to know, how do you keep a positive mindset?
So it's a choice. You know, I'm going to share with you 2 stories. One is not about me at all. There was a high school teacher, our culinary arts teacher at the high school that I taught at, Silverado, for 10 years, had a woman there named Sue Ballard. And she was the nicest person on the planet. I'm not nice. I mean, I know I come off as nice, but I crack jokes. I'm sarcastic. Like, I mean, I have a good positive mindset, but like this woman was like the epitome of kindness. She like was like a grandmother, and she was always there, and she was always doing stuff. I'm telling you, I would be at Costco shopping for myself, and you would see her there with 2 giant pallets just buying supplies for the culinary arts program. She was never not working. I would go to all these events because my kids would invite me, and she was there working because her foods program would be providing the food and selling stuff at those events. And I was just like, oh my God, you know, she worked harder than anybody on the planet. And when at her funeral, her son got up and spoke, and he said, you know, she was the kindest person. But you know, all these people talk about how my mom was kind. She chose to be that. She made a conscious choice to be kind. She made a conscious choice to do the right thing. And that has stuck with me. The other thing about me in particular is there's evil in the world. There are awful, awful things in the world. You don't have to look very far to see them. And if you look at the evil in the world and you just stay looking at the evil in the world, that is all you will ever see. People will be evil. People will be corrupt. People will be the worst things on the planet. They will, because they are. But at the same time, if you look for good in the world, you will find it where you look. Somebody helping someone cross the road, somebody picking up somebody's stuff when they dropped it, somebody holding a door open for someone else, a child saying, thank you. You know, every time my kids give me a hug, I'm just reminded of how amazing this world can be. You know, watching someone smile, helping someone out, seeing the smile from someone when you help them out, the appreciation. You know, when I was little and I lived with my dad, we used to help people move, and I hated it. I hated it. Well, I started out hating it because it was long and it took forever. And then I never understood what a huge sacrifice, A, it was on our part, but B, what a huge amount of effort and thankfulness that those people exuded. I didn't understand it, but they were so extremely grateful. Now that I'm an adult and I move, I'm like, oh my God, how can I not help people? And so anytime I ever hear of anybody moving, I'm the first one to volunteer because I know how impossible of a job that is and how trying it can be. And so I make those choices to see the good in the world because there's so much good in this world and there's so much beauty in it. In the same way that you have to look for the evil, you have to look for the good. And I make a conscious choice to do that because I don't want to be angry. I don't want to hate the world. I don't want to hate my life. I got, you know, I mean, I'm not Buddhist, but so, and even if you are, you got one go round in this world, in this body. So why not make the best of it? Why not enjoy it? You know, and don't get me wrong, there are times when life hits you hard and you get knocked down. And I have no problem with getting knocked down. I've been knocked down a lot. You know, Kipchoge got knocked down in 2017. And I don't have a problem staying down on the mat for a couple of minutes. But I also know that I got to get back up. And, you know, and I recognize that. And people recognize that about me. And, you know, it's okay for you to get knocked down and it's okay for you to be sad. It's just not okay for you to stay down there forever. And sometimes when you get gut punched and you get knocked down on the mat and it hurts, take that minute and breathe and it'll be okay. Just make sure you get back up. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's what I got for now. If I didn't, just ask it again and I'll ask you something a little bit different. I'll see if I can't get you the answer you're looking for.
I think it definitely did. I agree with, like, I feel like if something negative happens in our day, we tend to hone in on that and we kind of don't notice all of the positive, wonderful things that overshadow it. And I can even say I went through something very personal and I felt like, how am I going to get through this? Like my life is over, like thinking of that. And I didn't notice that I have a great support system around me. I had my close friends that are like family. I have my family, and just kind of changing my mindset to, this is not the end of your world. This is a new chapter and there's a brighter and better future for you. And just kind of looking, and it takes practice. You're going to be you're going to be stuck in those feelings, but you will get through it. And I'm getting to that point and it's so amazing. It's so, look forward to it. So yeah, I feel like you touched on it spot on. We have a couple more questions that I want to, hopefully we can get to them, but one of them,
absolutely,
specific to your story, and Armando wants to thank you for sharing it. It's very moving, and he would like to know, how were you able to stay from substance use and how did you fight that?
I didn't have access, you know, to a lot of, but alcohol, I did, obviously. I had a lot of access to alcohol. And how did I fight that? I'm gonna say something that could be considered, I don't know if it's controversial or not, but people are genetically predisposed. There's a lot of science behind the argument that people are genetically predisposed to addiction. And so addiction, while it seems like it's behavioral, it's also chemically imbued in the brain. And I personally believe that I don't necessarily have that genetic trait. So I went out there. I have drank. I mean, I've got liquor in the cabinet. I don't drink as much as I used to. Like I said, I went to a top 10 party school, so I don't want to make it, and I didn't just read books the whole time. I really enjoyed my college experience, but I also made sure that I studied. And so I think in terms of that, I didn't have the genetic predisposition for it, but B, I also recognized that like when I would drink, it was to have fun. And I noticed that if I was drinking for another purpose, like if I was drinking because I was sad or if I was drinking because I was just depressed, it didn't fill the gap. It didn't make me feel whole. It didn't take away the pain that I had felt. And that's what I had noticed. And unfortunately, people who do get addicted to drugs, maybe they get that moment of clarity, that moment of escape. Because when you're going through something that's so negative like that, it's really, and you feel like there's not a light at the end of the tunnel, that can give you that moment, and then you get lost trying to find that moment there as opposed to other things. And I think when things got really bad for me, I always looked ahead, like I'm only a couple of years from graduating high school, or I'm only a couple of years away from this, or, and when that got way too long, I would stretch it back, like, I would focus on if I can just make it through this month. And when that was too hard, I just tried to make it through the day. And when that was too hard, I just tried to make it through the hour. And when that was too hard, I just tried to make it through the minute. And you better believe me, when that was too hard, I just tried to make it from second to second. And that's how I made it through. And that kind of focus on those kinds of things helped me out tremendously.
Thank you. Another question we have from Marlena is, if we work with foster youth, besides building relationships and having a continual open door, being consistent with that, what else would you say can make a difference in supporting them?
You got to be there. You got to care. You got to listen. Every kid needs something different. And you got to recognize that when that kid acts out. So something that I shared when I shared with the adults, after I was molested, I had flashbacks, and psychologically, or I think that's the right word. Psychologically, when you have flashbacks or when you're triggered, your brain and your body is literally reliving that experience. So it's like it's happening to them all over again in wherever they're at. And shades of blue would trigger those flashbacks for me, certain shades of blue. So I would like literally be hanging out, and then all of a sudden I would see a color of blue and I would get quiet, and instantly like the whole traumatic experience would relive itself. Now for me, that was all internalized. I never really externalized that. So when your foster youth or anybody who's been through any kind of trauma starts externalizing those actions, it's important to remember that it's happening in front of you. It's not happening to you. And so when a kid flips out because you've asked them a question, or when a kid flips out because, you looked at them the wrong way, that's not at you. And that's not because of you. That's because of something else entirely. And the goal is you get them through whatever that is, because you gotta, with love and care. And then afterwards you have a conversation around that so that you can minimize whatever it is that's causing that reaction. And they probably won't be able to tell you that. Like I wouldn't be able to tell you that it's because I saw this shade of blue that all of a sudden I got quiet. And even if I could, I might not want to, because that sounds ridiculous. I mean, really? You saw something blue and that's why you freaking went off? Yeah, it is. I mean, how hard is that to convey to somebody? And for someone to have the decency, because if you haven't gone through it, you wouldn't know that it could be something that small. I mean, you acted like a wild buffoon because of the pin on my shirt or the tie that I'm wearing. And the answer might be yes. And so understanding that and getting them through whatever meltdown they're having with love and compassion, and then trying to come to an understanding so that you can navigate through that. The other thing I would say is if you're going to help out a foster kid, they don't have an advocate. So when you tell them to go somewhere to get something, and that person's having a bad day where you sent them to, and they don't come away with it, they don't have a mom to go back to say, hey, I tried to go get my sign up for the SAT, but the counselor secretary wouldn't give me the paperwork because I didn't go during lunch, or I didn't go at the appropriate time, or, they were busy. And so there was a crisis, and so they weren't able to get it. Does that make sense? So when you've got to be that kid's advocate. So if you know that a kid needs something, if you send them to go get it and they can't get it, or they don't get it, make sure that when they come back, the next time you see them, ask them if they were able to get it. And if they weren't able to get it, don't blame them. Go to that adult, or go with them to that adult and help them get those things. Because you got to advocate for them, because there's not going to be somebody else to do that for them.
Thank you, Don. I have one more question from Jennifer. She would just like to know, how does forgiveness play its part in your life?
Okay, I'm going to actually tie that into a question that I saw in the chat from Nicole that said, have you forgiven your uncle, and do you talk now? I got to be honest with both of you guys. So my uncle, yes, I've forgiven, and I forgave him a long time ago. I never really held much against my uncle. My uncle wasn't super abusive. My uncle wasn't really mean to me. You get to a point where you've taken so much crap in your life and you're like, I'm not taking any more crap. Well, they gave me a little bit of crap and I was just like, I'm done. I'm not going to deal with it. I'm sorry. And I felt bad. I really did, because honestly, I had gotten in trouble for doing stuff that a teenager would get in trouble for doing. But then, at one point, I'd missed the bus going home, and they stopped me from being able to be on the mock trial team because I got a ride home from a friend as opposed to going to my aunt. And for them, it was me not trusting them to be able to handle the problem. And for me, it was I was just trying to problem solve. So that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me, because I got in trouble for that, and they wouldn't let me do the after school mock trial program that I was a part of. They kicked me off the team, and I was like, nope, no, sorry. I didn't do anything wrong. But with my mother, it took a long time to forgive. I was angry. And this is something I don't share with a lot of people, but I was angry for a long time. And one of the things I remember is when I was a little kid, one of the times we lived in this 2-story apartment complex. I think it was in 6th grade at the time. My mom had told me that I was trash and I wasn't gonna, all the nasty stuff that you can imagine somebody saying. And I'm crying and I'm standing at the top of the stairs and I'm screaming down at my mom, one day I'm gonna have a giant house and you're not gonna be allowed inside of it. And you're not gonna be welcome here. And I'll never forget that. And I carried that anger with me for a long time. And I'll tell you, man, that anger was motivating. That anger helped me graduate. That anger helped me get through a lot of hard moments, because I let that anger be my fuel. But as an adult, now that I'm 38 and I got 2 kids, I had a really tough time these last couple of years admitting to myself that, I had become successful because I had this chip on my shoulder because I was angry at my mother. And I didn't want to be successful because I was angry. I wanted to be successful because I was good, because I wanted to be good and I wanted to do good in this world. And so letting go of that anger has been an emotional process for me. And I met somebody who had went through a similar experience, and he was speaking at a conference. And afterwards I went up to him and I talked to him, and he had said something that was immensely profound to me. And I can't remember your name, but you said that you were in the foster care system. I think it was Kiana, right? Yeah, Kiana. This is what was immensely profound to me. And maybe I don't know if you're ready for it or not, but I was in my 30s before I was ready for it. And they said that you did the best you could, or they did the best they could, meaning my mom did the best she could. I don't have the tools to be an amazing dad. We're not given those. It's not like you go to Walmart and you pick up your amazing dad toolkit, or you pick up your amazing mom toolkit, or you pick up your amazing anything toolkit. You just learn and you hope and you try to get better, and you fail over and over and over again. Failure is the hugest part of this life and this existence. And the more we can embrace that failure and learn from it, the better we can become. And so my mom, I've since learned, went through an abusive childhood herself. And so she really didn't have the tools. And she damn sure didn't have the tools to deal with a kid who was upset about the fact that he wasn't with his mom or wasn't with his dad. And I'm not making excuses for my mother now. There was nothing that was right about what my mom did to me or how she treated me. But she did the best she could. I deserved better than that, and I'm okay with that. And I, in being able to forgive my mother, had to be okay with the fact that she did do the best she could. And I recognizing now what I know about my mom, I really do believe that she did the best she could. She tried. And she tried in the only way that she knew how. And she didn't have the tools to learn from her failures to turn them into successes. I have learned a lot from the awful, awful experiences that I've gone through. I've learned how not to be, how not to treat people, how not to behave, how not to teach, how not to love, how not to do all of those things. And knowing how not to do those things has helped me to try to figure out how to do those things. And so I still struggle with that. You know, I'm not perfect. My girlfriend and I, we get into fights sometimes, but she knows that I love her and that she loves, and I know that she loves me, and we make it work and we come back and we communicate. So forgiveness has played an immense role in my life, especially in the last few years, because they didn't want to be angry. That anger can fuel you and it can take you so far, but once you've reached where it is that you want to go and you still have that anger, what are you going to do with it? Anger can be a powerful tool. Forgiveness, maybe it's the ultimate tool, I don't know, because it helps us with our compassion and it helps us to see the beauty in the world. Questions.
Thank you. I actually just want to kind of end this Q&A portion with a comment from Norma. I want to shout her out. Norma's awesome, but she went ahead and just wrote in the chat box, remember who you are, keep in mind about your goals. If you have people to support you, let them and cherish them. Don't worry if there are those who are not willing. At the end, it is you and only you that will move you forward, overcoming challenges and rejection. In addition, if you believe, you can beat the statistics if you set your mind to do so. In the moment, it feels like adversity will never end, but it does. Remember, although being vulnerable to the core is excruciating, it is a necessary process to endure in order to obtain authenticity, inner peace, happiness, and freedom. So I just wanted to share that because I just thought that was very powerful. And she also went on to share another comment, which if you all want to go ahead and take a look at that, feel free to do so. I want to go ahead and just share my screen one last time. I know there's a couple of questions coming in, but Don shared his email address in the chat box. And like he said, you feel free to reach out to him. Let me just go ahead and bring my screen up really quick. Please feel free to just follow us. If you're a student, if you're an educator, if you're a parent, follow us on social media. We have lots of content for everyone to take advantage of. And we also have one more webinar today. It'll be our very last one. It's our cyberbullying workshop. And then all of our previous webinars have actually been uploaded already onto our YouTube channel if you're curious to watch them on your own time. So I want to just go ahead and end it there. On my behalf, I want to go ahead and thank everybody for spending your morning with us. And ultimately, I want to thank you, Don, for sharing your story and just for taking the time in being with us this morning on World Kindness Day.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity. Can you save the chat and send it to me? Because I'd really like to read the comments. I didn't get a chance to read them.
I can, yes, I definitely will. Thank you.
I posted my email in the chat. Please feel free to reach out to me. I am here. I'm available. My kid's got school at noon, and I'll be taking random dance breaks because he's 5. But in between, I'll be able to go ahead and answer any questions that you have. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys taking the time, and hopefully we got something. Happy World Kindness Day, and I'm sorry, Bianca, I didn't mean to go your role.
Oh no, it's okay. You ended it off very well for us. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.